Welcome to Markets Today. I'm your host, Mbithe Mwema. Today being Tuesday, the second week of trading, we will be giving you an overview of really what happened yesterday and what to expect for the remainder of the week. We also take a sidestep and look at some of the topical issues that are driving the economy at this point in time. The closure of primary and secondary schools is certainly a pertinent issue for the economy. And today we want to question, does this impact government operations? Does it have an impact on GDP? And do we expect a trickle-down impact on certain sectors in the economy? I will be introducing the guest in studio who's going to help us and facilitate this conversation with us later on. But first, when we're looking at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, the turnover was down yesterday at the beginning of the week, and we saw turnover at 458 million shillings worth of shares traded. Now, the key thing that has been going through the NSE is this. There has been a drawdown in terms of the prices over the last couple of months, and especially since over the last 2 weeks as we've come into the new month. What typically happens is when the quarter ends, which ended last month, that's June 30th, there's always a rebalancing of portfolios. So you typically tend to see an upsurge of prices, and then once the date of June 30th comes to pass, then the next weeks are actually followed with very muted demand from the investors. The other thing that we are seeing is this. We are seeing a lot of profit taking and people just staying on the sidelines when it comes to the NSE. Remember that the quarter that has just ended is a culmination of the most hard-hit quarter in as far as coronavirus is concerned. Investors remain on the sidelines waiting to articulate the impact of this COVID, more so on the banking sector, looking at the non-performing loans. We have seen banks such as KCB, Equity, Cooperative Bank, Absa Bank, amongst others, hit very low lows in this particular quarter. KCB is now trading at the 33-34 range. Equity is trading at the 31 shilling range. We've seen Absa trading at the 9.5 shilling range. This is stocks that have come off about 10 to 20% over the last quarter. The question is, as they start to report their numbers for the second quarter, what do we expect? We expect adverse performance in non-performing loans. We expect a shrink down in terms of the earnings that are coming from some of the normal operations, given that they haven't been lending, neither have they been earning transaction income after the central bank muted the cost of funding when you're actually doing transactions from your mobile wallet to your bank wallet. But that's a conversation for later on. Today, we want to look at the economy and say this. What drives performance on the NSE? We have income that comes from the companies as well as the government operations that are normally a precursor to investor sentiment, which trickles down to the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The topical issue in Kenya today is the education sector. The education sector is about 27% of the government budget. For this current year, 497 billion had been allocated to this sector. We want to understand, now that the schools have been closed for 6 months, which is effectively half of the fiscal year, what does this mean for government expenditure? Should we expect savings? What does it mean for revenue? Because we're trying to understand if this 497 is all allocated in terms of school fees, or is it just for paying the teachers? Is it recurrent? Is there a trickle-down effect on the taxes? And should we expect then additional taxes to be taxed on you as a consumer, because then the government might not be able to recover what it has been recovering from pay-as-you-earn? In studio with us is Mr. Garrett Udun, who is a director at SKM Business Consultants. He's a tax specialist and he deals with the SMEs as well as with the large corporates. And he's been looking at these companies and trying to get a sense of what is happening. So he's certainly well placed to give us an overview of what the education sector, what this means for the education sector, as well as a read through for the rest of the economy. Welcome to the show, Mr. Udun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So as we are looking at education, before I actually delve into the conversation of education,
Sure.
Perhaps you can give us your perspective in terms of how is the economy doing? How are the businesses doing? How are the interactions and the business engagements that you're seeing looking like today compared to about 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. When you look at the economy currently, we have really had a downtime at the performance of various business sectors. Actually, from a large perspective, you can see so many companies are grappling with cash flow issues. There's a lot of uncertainties when it comes to employment. Actually, when you look at several companies, they have laid off their employees so that they can be able to at least survive, at least for the next few months. So this has been a new issue or a new perspective that several companies have begun looking into, because actually the major issue that companies now are looking forward is to so that they can progress, they can be able to survive in the next few quarters. So most companies at the moment, it's all about ensuring that they can be able to meet their day-to-day needs. So most companies are really facing a lot of cash flow issues. There is no flow of goods and services that as normally it used to be. The export business, majorly for Kenya, we usually heavily rely on export and also import of products. Actually, if you do an analysis of the export and imports, there really has been a lot of reluctance when it comes to products that are actually being brought into the economy. Even recently, we have seen news that which are actually really stating that like the Mutumba products have actually been halted from coming into the country. And actually the ones that are coming in are actually, they're very few.
Okay.
The manufacturing sector have heavily rely on inputs. This could be in form of machinery. So for them to efficiently operate and to a maximum capacity, they need these inputs, which Kenya as a middle income country, we heavily rely on importing majority of these inputs.
Okay.
And majority of these inputs have largely been held at the port, or there's some that which have not coming into the country. So if you look even at the manufacturing sector, it is all been halted. So it's affected diverse economies. However, there are some sectors of the economy which have really progressed. If you look at the IT sector,
okay.
If you look at the furniture, mostly when it comes to individuals who are selling desks and furniture, because currently what actually happened, most people shifted to working from home.
Exactly.
So what resulted into that, there was an influx in purchase of furniture. Other people who have actually benefited are individuals who sell the normal groceries, because actually if you currently walk down the roads, you can find people actually selling agricultural products down the road.
Oh, yes.
So which has been a good thing for the small scale farmers, who actually are now able to cut on the middlemen. So it's a balance. It's a balance between the two, but it has from the overall perspective, businesses have really seen that we have experienced that business has really experienced a downtime. Yeah.
So there's a downturn, and it looks like it's certainly going to impact on the government revenue collection.
Yes, okay. Exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah.
Stepping into the education sector, last week the Cabinet Secretary confirmed that the schools will be closed for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
That's effectively half of the fiscal year.
Sure.
Earlier in the year, actually in the month, we had seen the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury, Honorable Yatani, say that he was allocating 497 billion to the sector. That's 27% of the budget allocation going into the education sector. No schools are operating. What does this mean for this 497 billion?
From my individual perspective, when the Cabinet Secretary was reading the budget allocation for education, he specifically highlighted that this amount will be used, one, for recruitment of teachers, construction of classrooms. There was also an amount that was supposed to be allocated for the free primary and secondary education. In addition to that, there is the issue about the school feeding program. Mostly it's usually implemented in the low-income counties. So currently with the schools closed, you can find that majority of these funds have not yet been dispersed to the schools. However, it's important to note that the Cabinet Secretary for Education recently stated that they'll still continue paying the teachers as usual. But this should be an opportunity for the government to invest in this money in construction of classrooms or building labs. you can find that currently we implemented the CBC school system.
Yes.
The CBC school system majorly involves a lot of technical expertise, and which requires a lot of technical classrooms where we can be able to teach people with regards to art, music, or any form of, it encourages, it's more of skill-based education system. And for this to happen, we need to have the proper infrastructure. We need computers, we need laptops. You see, if all this is not implemented at this time when students are not in school, we'll definitely miss out on this opportunity.
All right.
So it's upon the government to ensure that these funds that were initially allocated to education, they're properly used in ensuring that we set proper structures before we are caught up in this mess again.
Okay.
Because come 10 years down the line when these students actually get to the secondary, actually it's called the upper secondary level, you'll find that there'll be no infrastructure, there'll be no classrooms where they can be able to learn all this all this that's supposed to be implemented. In addition to that, this should also be an opportunity where they need to empower the teachers, because one of the critical issues that was raised when CBC was being implemented was that as much as this system is good enough for us as a country, we don't have that capability, we don't have that, our teachers are not empowered enough to implement this to the children. Exactly. So this is an opportunity that the government needs to use to at least empower the teachers so that they can be able to pass this knowledge to the students.
All right.
So this fund can be used.
They can be deployed.
Yes, it can be used appropriately if the government, if that will be the key word, if the government really is keen in ensuring that this money is
continuity.
Yes.
I was playing devil's advocate, and I said this. So let's say 497 billion. You round it off. That's 500 billion allocation to the sector.
Yes.
You're saying 6 months are out, right?
Yes.
So that's 250 billion. If you look at it, it could be in savings, because the allocation is typically more on recurrent expenditure, which I want to imagine recurrent is paying your teachers, paying for content, paying publishers, etc. So that's a kitty of 250 billion that's potentially there. Am I completely off the mark when I say there's a 250 billion savings on government expenditure? Or is the fact that the schools are closed, does that mean that money still keeps leaving the coffers of the government and is just deployed to things that we might not be accountable for?
I believe the government, as I had highlighted before,
yes.
First, the government has clearly stated that it is going to pay teachers as usual as it because
so there's no saving there.
There's from teacher's salary. There's no saving there. Now, what remains is this amount that had been allocated
for the capital.
Yes, to build schools, to build labs. There could be a saving from school feeding, the amount that had been allocated on the school feeding program, so that there could be a saving, which can be
but it's negligible. It's the feeding program. I mean, all of the feeding program, all these special programs were less than 10 billion.
Yes.
So none of them were above 10 billion. But okay, it's a saving. It's still a saving. But I don't know, Garrett. I'm tempted to ask why. If the rest of the economy, as you said earlier, you're saying the SME sector, the middle sector, people are laying off people to manage cash flow. Yeah, so you're saying the private sector is grappling with cash flow management.
Very true.
And the strategy it's using, it's laying off people just to manage its cash flow.
Exactly.
And if the micro economy is struggling with cash flow management, it means that the macro economy, the government of Kenya, is also having a similar struggle.
Yes.
So if you're going to close down the schools for 6 months, why are you putting the people on pay?
You see, from a government perspective, you always need to look at the economy from a macro perspective.
Okay.
If assuming the government decided to halt the payment of teachers now, trust you me, there'll be so many people who will be rendered jobless. There'll be a lot of social insecurities in the economy. Leaving even the teachers aside, currently there's several social insecurities that have grappled the economy just because so many people were laid off from their workplaces. But now, if you include the teachers into the mix, because currently we have 400,000 teachers who are employed in secondary, primary, and technical schools. So if those teachers were not paid, you can imagine the unemployment rate, which currently stands at around 9%, based on Kenya Bureau of Statistics, which, from my opinion, that figure could be roughly over 50%. So if you include the number of teachers who are already 400,000 and you don't pay them, we'll have a really financial crisis. In addition to that, we currently have over 300,000 teachers who have been engaged by TSC, Teacher Service Commission, but have not been employed. So we already have 300,000 teachers who are already out in the economy, who are not employed anywhere else. So the employment of these 400 teachers by just paying their salaries, it's a very huge relief, because they support their children who they support. So we cannot decide that we let them out and decide to not pay them.
Fair enough.
So in my opinion, I believe that we should just continue paying teachers. However, the remainder of the amount that had been allocated for education needs to be well deployed into the capital expenditure projects. We need to ensure by the time this pandemic is over, we need to ensure that we have proper infrastructure that prepares us for the coming.
Next.
Exactly.
So from 2020,
exactly,
21.
Exactly.
Okay.
We hope that we'll not have any pandemic again. However, I'm looking forward to a case whereby, come several years down the line, we ensure that we don't have a case where we actually need to go to class. If it is a matter of going to class, it will be a matter of just going to class to attend classes. You remember when the Jubilee government came in, we had this project that students were supposed to get laptops.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if that will have been implemented currently now, all the students will still be continuing with their studies. Actually, the government wouldn't have thought about halting classes and pushed it up to next year.
It would just have been a way of move from this platform to this
Exactly.
platform.
It will just be a matter of, okay, guys, we have equipped you with laptops and tablets. So it's now a matter of you moving your learning space from the classrooms to your homes, provided you are able to coordinate your times and understand that from around, let's say, 8 to around 4, you're able to focus on your studies. By the end of the year, we'll maybe have done our usual examination cases and KCPE.
Okay.
So it's an issue that the government really needs to look up to, and actually this is the best time for them to actually invest
now
on.
To review.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what I hear you saying is, okay, fine, you still have 250 billion.
Yes.
It still needs to go for the recurrent expenditure, just at a macro level, then because there's also a huge multiplier effect if anything changes. But the key pertinent thing that I hear you saying is this: there needs to be a review. If you're going to pay 250 billion for 6 months, then there's an opportunity for you to use this human resource to sort of recreate and to think through, how do I actually want this sector to look like?
Exactly.
And you're also bringing out the element of infrastructure. So I know you've said infrastructure in terms of classrooms. I know you're leaning towards infrastructure with regards to technology.
Yes.
Is there any other infrastructure component that you could think of? Is there, I mean, and I look at it this way, you deal with input and output analysis. When you're doing your corporate evaluation, or you're engaging with your small and large businesses, you're looking at what input are you putting in, how are you turning this into a product or service, and then output, so that you can be able to get value. When you look at the education sector from a top-down level, today the input is the teacher goes to class, the content is already defined, you stand there with a book, if you have the book, you write on the board, and then you move, the child goes through key examination processes and then goes on to the next level of education.
Sure.
If you're saying infrastructure needs to change, is there anything on the top of your mind that you can say, based on the way I look at input in the sector, perhaps this 250 billion, which has already been set aside for human capital, this human capital can be engaged in this way to bring about a change that could last? Is there anything you can think of?
Yeah, sure. And in order for me to completely respond to your question,
Yes.
I'll take you back to when the education system was first implemented, way back then in 1964.
Okay.
So back then we had an education system. The education system that was implemented in 1964 heavily relied in ensuring that the common mwananchi was just able to read. So long as you can be able to read, comprehend. When somebody talks to you in English, it was after we had been colonized, when somebody talks to you in English or Kiswahili, you can be able to comprehend and actually act on it. So later on, sometime in 1985, we had an overhaul of the system, is when we introduced the 844 system. And the 844 system was majorly implemented so that to ensure that we are not able to read, but you can be able to prepare you for employment.
Okay.
Exactly. So that was the purpose of the 844 system. So we have been using the 844 system since 1985 till sometime in 2017, when we now shifted to curriculum, competency-based curriculum, there, commonly referred to as CBC. So the CBC looked at the 844 system and noted that there are a lot of gaps on the 844 system. Reason being, the 844 system prepared you for employment. However, in Kenya, our major sources of, or rather our major contribution to the gross domestic product are the agricultural sector, which contributes over 40% of the GDP. When you look at what is it called? We have tourism. We also have other technical skills that are also involved. However, the 844 system only prepares you for the white-collar jobs, but it does not look on the other side.
The blue-collar jobs, the informal sector.
Exactly, the informal sector. And actually, from a holistic perspective, the informal sector is the one that contributes to a larger amount of our taxes in Kenya.
Okay. Oh, actually, interesting.
Yeah. The informal sector, which basically is the PAYE and corporation tax, majorly usually contributes approximately around 40% or 40% to 50% of our taxes.
Okay.
But there is a lot in the formal sector that even the KRA has not managed to explore. So the CBC system came into play to empower a student not only to look forward towards employment, but also to develop his skills so that this student, by the time he leaves school, he is confident. This student is able to be independent. He does not look forward to be employed. Somebody who thinks broadly. The CBC system was also put in place to ensure that you are very creative and innovative, so that you can be able to think outside the box. So with all this in play, this matter now ensures that it places the responsibility on the teacher to ensure that the teacher is able to empower the students to attain this capacity.
Yes.
And if you're not able to empower the teacher, there's no way the teacher will be able to pass this knowledge to the student. So it all boils down to what is the capacity of the teacher. So my basic point, or rather to sum it up, I'll really point out that it's all about ensuring that the teacher, during this COVID period and all this time that when we have, I can call it a break from all the issues, we need to ensure that the teachers are well empowered so that at least a teacher can be able to have all these technical skills.
Okay.
A teacher can be able to have the skills relating to art. A teacher can be able to have the skills relating to music. A teacher can be able to have the skills relating to agriculture. Because if you don't empower the teacher, definitely that knowledge cannot be able to pass.
Wow.
So it's all about us passing all this knowledge to the teacher. Then it's when the teacher will be able to pass that knowledge to the student. Then, if we look forward to the next 10, 15 years, we'll now shift from this mindset that I'm working towards being employed at this and this company. I'm working towards being employed at this and this company. It will now be a matter of, yes, my goal in life is to be able to create a brand by myself. I stand on my own. If I get employed by somebody else, that's good riddance. Yes, it's
wow.
so. But if we can be able to shift that mindset, and that's what CBC actually is gearing towards, and that's what we are hoping that in the next 10, 15 years, we'll be able to do that. I usually look at my neighbors who have children who have gone through the CBC system. You can actually be able to tell the difference between them and when we were kids.
Oh, wow.
You can actually be able to tell that the people who can confidently talk to you and raise issues about how they feel about a situation. You see, way back then, we all used to go to classrooms and study about maths, English, Kiswahili, and that's it. You go back home, look forward to doing KCSE, KCPE, you pass with flying colors. The next thing, you look forward to being employed in an
accounting firm.
In an accounting firm.
Or in a bank.
Exactly.
Or you become a medic.
Exactly, exactly. But now, when you look at the children at this moment, the goals that they tell you that they have about their future is totally different. Somebody tells you that when I grow up, I want to be a musician. I want to be a professional wine tester, such things. You see,
those would never be heard of.
That will never be heard of.
It should never be heard of, actually. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so it's a matter of broadening our perspective about the avenues that we can be able to generate more income. And actually, when you look at it, when we have this broad perspective that we can be able to get income, not from just employment, but other sources by me as an individual, creating employment for other people, in the totality, we'll be broadening our gross domestic product in the country.
All right.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I like the way you've left it on the note of CBC is what we need. We should use this time and the resources available to sort of fast track CBC. And if we continue with the CBC way, what you're saying is that in 10, 15 years, the output of the labor output of the Kenyan, of the average Kenyan, will be considerably higher and contribute to a bigger GDP pie. That's such a fantastic. Let me just stop on that note. We take a brief break. Then when we come back, we will be just trying to get our heads around, okay, fine, so what? What's the call to action? What needs to happen? What do you need to look out for if you're an investor in this economy? And do any of these conversations on CBC and education sector, do they affect what you do on a day-to-day basis? We take a short break. Our number is 20146. We would like to know where you're watching us from. We are also on social media. That's at Metropole TV or Mbithemwema on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. And we want to hear your thoughts on this pertinent conversation. See you after the break.